Horror games are having an absolute renaissance right now, and 2025 into 2026 is looking stacked. We're talking Lovecraftian nightmares, Resident Evil 9, multiple Silent Hill projects, and a bunch of indie horror games that look genuinely terrifying. Some of these are launching soon, others are stuck in development limbo, but they all look worth keeping on your radar. Whether you're into psychological horror, survival horror, or just want to get scared out of your mind, this list has something for you. Let's dive into 25 upcoming horror games that are going to make you sleep with the lights on. Starting with The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. The Mound Omen of Cthulhu is a Lovecraftian horror game built in Unreal Engine 5, and the atmosphere looks genuinely unsettling. You're investigating a mysterious mound in rural Oklahoma, uncovering cosmic horrors that should have stayed buried. Summer 2026 release for PS5, Xbox, and PC means we're not too far off from diving into this nightmare. The developers are leaning heavily into Lovecraft's original story, so expect slow-building dread rather than cheap jump scares. If you've been craving a horror game that respects cosmic horror, this one's looking promising. Sublustrum Remake is rebuilding the cult classic psychological horror game in Unreal Engine 5, and the visual upgrade is massive. The original had a dedicated fan base, but suffered from dated visuals and clunky mechanics. This remake is fixing all of that while keeping the oppressive atmosphere intact. Releasing in 2026 for PS5, Xbox, and PC, this is one for fans of slow-burn psychological horror. If you never played the original, this is the perfect chance to experience it properly.
Keep the capsule. It must not be lost. So far, I've been to that place only a few times, and never long enough. The return was often tormenting, and I vowed never to venture there again.
Agni Village of Calamity is a survival horror game set in a cursed Indian village. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the cultural folklore and religious horror elements make this stand out from the usual Western horror tropes. Targeting 2026 for PC, this one's all about exploration, puzzle solving, and surviving encounters with supernatural entities. If you're tired of the same haunted asylums and creepy mansions, Agni's setting alone makes it worth watching. Liminal Point is tapping into that liminal space horror aesthetic that's been blowing up online. Unreal Engine 5 makes those empty pools, abandoned malls, and endless hallways look disturbingly realistic. Releasing in 2026 for PC, this one's banking on atmosphere over action. If you're into games like The Backrooms, or anything that makes familiar spaces feel deeply wrong, Liminal Point is built for you.
So do I. I'll be waiting, so come and find me.
Wait, Cinder City is on this list? Yeah, it's technically a cyberpunk action RPG, but the horror elements are strong enough to include it. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the dark dystopian underbelly, body horror augmentations, and oppressive corporate nightmares give it serious horror vibes. Releasing in the second half of 2026 for PS5, Xbox, and PC, this one blends sci-fi action with psychological dread. If you like your horror mixed with neon-soaked streets and existential corporate terror, Cinder City delivers. Menace is a first-person survival horror game built on a proprietary engine, which immediately makes it intriguing. Targeting 2026 for PC, the developers are going for that classic survival horror formula. Limited resources, tense encounters, and an oppressive atmosphere. No hand-holding, no waypoints, just you and whatever's hunting you in the dark. If you miss the days when horror games didn't tell you exactly where to go, Menace is aiming to bring that back. Drowned Lake is a Unity 6 horror game set in a flooded forest where something is lurking beneath the water. No release date yet, but the underwater horror angle is genuinely terrifying. The developers are focusing on isolation, limited visibility, and the constant fear of what's swimming just out of sight. If you have any level of thalassophobia, this game is going to wreck you. Project G is shrouded in mystery, which honestly makes it more intriguing. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the few gameplay snippets released show dark corridors, grotesque creatures, and a heavy focus on atmospheric tension. No release date yet, but the PC exclusive development suggests the team is prioritizing detail over multi-platform compromises. If you like horror games that keep their cards close to the chest, Project G is one to keep an eye on.
I am going to Memphis.
Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake is finally happening, and it's launching March 12, 2026 for PS5, Xbox, PC, and Switch 2. Built on the Katana engine, this is one of the scariest games ever made getting a proper modern overhaul. The camera obscura mechanics, the oppressive Japanese village setting, and the deeply unsettling ghost encounters are all being rebuilt for modern hardware. If you've never played Fatal Frame 2, this is essential. If you have, you already know how terrifying this is going to be.
Shall we begin?
Kratos Deep is an underwater horror game built in Unreal Engine 5, and the deep sea setting looks absolutely nightmarish. Releasing in 2026 for PS5, Xbox, PC, and Switch, you're exploring underwater facilities, avoiding hostile creatures, and managing oxygen levels while something hunts you in the darkness. If Subnautica stressed you out, Kratos Deep is going to push that anxiety to the next level. Clive Barker's Hellraiser revival is finally bringing the Cenobites back to gaming, and honestly, it's about time. Releasing in 2026 for PS5, Xbox, and PC, this one's promising to capture the body horror and psychological dread of the original films. If it can balance puzzle solving with the grotesque horror Hellraiser is known for, this could be the first great Hellraiser game we've ever had.
Will be transcendent.
The Florist is a psychological horror game built in Unreal Engine 5, where you're running a flower shop by day and uncovering dark secrets by night. Releasing in 2026 for PS5, Switch 2, and PC, the duality of mundane daily life versus creeping horror is the main hook. If you're into games that build tension slowly, rather than relying on constant scares, The Florist looks genuinely unsettling. Whispers in the Fog is a first-person horror game set in a fog-covered town where reality keeps shifting. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the visual distortion and disorienting level design make it hard to trust what you're seeing. No release date yet for PC, but the psychological horror angle and Silent Hill-inspired atmosphere have people intrigued. Cryzal Theater of Idols is a horror game set in an abandoned theater filled with creepy mannequins and occult rituals. Built in Unreal Engine 5, releasing in 2026 for PC, PS5, and Xbox, this one's leaning into that classic survival horror exploration formula. If you like games where every room feels like a trap and every shadow hides something, Cryzal has that energy.
Now and forever. Cryzal.
Blight Survival is a medieval horror game where you're fighting against a plague that turns people into monsters. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the combat looks brutal and the atmosphere is oppressively dark. No release date yet for PC, but the extraction shooter mechanics mixed with horror survival make it stand out. If you've been wanting a horror game that actually makes combat scary, Blight Survival is worth watching. Ill is a psychological horror game built in Unreal Engine 5, and the trailers are intentionally vague, which works in its favor. No release date yet for PS5, Xbox, and PC, but the glimpses of distorted reality, grotesque imagery, and disorienting environments have horror fans paying attention. If it can deliver on the unsettling atmosphere it's teasing, Ill could be a sleeper hit. Aphelion is a sci-fi horror game set on a derelict space station. Built in Unreal Engine 5, releasing in 2026 for PS5, Xbox, and PC, this one's giving off serious Dead Space vibes. Isolated environments, limited resources, and something stalking you through the corridors. If you've been missing classic sci-fi survival horror, Aphelion is shaping up nicely.
I got this. Oh no. Holy shit. What are you?
Below is a minimalist horror game where you're descending deeper into an underground facility. No release date yet for PC, but the concept of constant downward progression into darker, more disturbing environments is genuinely unnerving. If you like horror games that strip away everything except pure atmosphere and dread, Below is one to watch. Ferocious is a dinosaur survival horror game launching December 4th, 2025 for PC. Built in Unity 6, you're stuck on a hostile island with mercenaries and prehistoric predators hunting you. The twist is you can also control the dinosaurs, which is wild. It's part horror, part chaos simulator. If you've been waiting for a proper Dino Crisis spiritual successor with a modern twist, Ferocious might scratch that itch. Infurious is a demon-hunting horror game built in Unreal Engine 5. No release date yet for PC, but the combat-focused horror gameplay looks intense. You're not just running and hiding, you're actively fighting back against demonic forces. If you like horror games that give you the tools to fight, but still make every encounter terrifying, Infurious is worth keeping on your radar.
Where sinners' souls are bound to eternal punishment, ruled by 9 beings sired from them. This is your infernal pilgrimage.
Phantom Line is a tactical extraction horror game with a playtest launching March 5th, 2026 for PC. Built in Unreal Engine 5, you're teaming up to retrieve objectives while avoiding supernatural threats. The mix of co-op tactics and horror survival is intriguing. If you want horror with friends but something more grounded than Phasmophobia, Phantom Line could fill that gap. Reanimal is Tarsier Studios' next game, the team behind Little Nightmares, and it's launching February 13, 2026 for PS5, Xbox, PC, and Switch 2. Built in Unreal Engine 5, you're exploring a mysterious island filled with grotesque creatures and environmental puzzles. If you loved Little Nightmares' art direction and atmospheric horror, Reanimal is a day one must-play. Resident Evil 9 Requiem is launching February 27, 2026 for PS5, Xbox, and PC, and the hype couldn't be higher. Built on the RE engine, early details suggest we're returning to a more classic survival horror structure with inventory management, backtracking, and resource scarcity. If Capcom can deliver the same quality as RE2 Remake and RE Village, Requiem is going to be massive.
What's wrong? I'll explain later.
There's no escaping your destiny.
Shark Dentist is exactly what it sounds like, and yes, it's a horror game. Built in Unity 6, you're a dentist treating sharks, but things go horribly wrong. No release date yet for PC, but the absurd premise mixed with body horror makes it impossible to ignore. If you want horror that's genuinely weird and unpredictable, Shark Dentist is something. Silent Hill Townfall is rumored for 2026 on PS5 and PC. Built in Unreal Engine 5, this is one of multiple Silent Hill projects in development, and the few details we have suggest a return to the psychological horror roots of the franchise. If it actually releases and captures even half of what made Silent Hill 2 special, this could be huge.